Step 4 was the wreckage of our past. Step 10 is the wreckage of our present. It's Jenna, your favorite demon starver. I'm here with Mango and Milo. If you've been following along, you know the steps and the spiritual principles are the same, whether you're working Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. I don't speak for either of those organizations. I am a person in recovery, and I come to you with my experience, and hopefully that will give you some strength and hope. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm not your sponsor, but I'm a sponsor, and I can help you out. We are going to be talking about step 10 in the basic text and the it works how and why. I like to do this as if I'm speaking to a sponsee. So I'm going to read it, talk about what it says, tell part of my own story. Before I forget, like, subscribe, hit the notification button. Some of y'all are watching and liking it, but not subscribing. So let's get on that. Anyway, enough about me. We are on page 42 of the Narcotics Anonymous basic text. Step 10. We continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And the spiritual principle behind that is perseverance. Step 4, we did our moral inventory. Step 5, we admitted it to ourselves, to another human being, to the God of our understanding, the exact nature of our wrongs. In step 8, we made a list of all people that we had harmed. And in step 9, we started making amends to those people. You should not be waiting to finish your amends to move on to step 10. Get all your direct amends done. You're doing your living amends. Go ahead and move on to step 10. Because you may never finish step 9. The point of step 9 is to be willing to make those amends. And if the opportunity presents itself where you can make amends, you do. But don't sit and wait and go, I can't move to step 10 because I haven't got hold of Sheila and Sarah. Oh, well, move on anyway. Keep it pushing, and always be willing to make your amends. That is not something that goes away. If you're doing a thorough and fearless step 10 on the regular, you may never have to go back and do another step 4. Yay! Step 4 is scary and it sucks. I told my sponsees, it's going to be excruciating. You're going to hate it. But guess what? You get all this happiness, joy, and freedom on the other side of it, that it's worth it. It's hard. We do it anyway. It sucks. We do it anyway. But you do your 10 right, you may never have to do another 4. So isn't that something to look forward to? Step 10 frees us from the wreckage of our present, like step 4 freed us from the wreckage of our past. If we do not stay aware of our defects, they can drive us into a corner that we can't get out of clean. One of the first things we learn in Narcotics Anonymous is that if we use, we lose. By the same token, we won't experience as much pain if we can avoid the things that cause the pain. Continuing to take a personal inventory means that we form a habit of looking at ourselves, our actions, attitudes, and relationships on a regular basis. We are creatures of habit and are vulnerable to our old ways of thinking and reacting. At times, it seems easier to continue in the old rut of self-destruction than to attempt a new and seemingly dangerous route. We don't have to be trapped by our old patterns. Today, we have a choice. What do I always tell you? Addiction's a demon, disguised as a disease, takes away your power of choice. Recovery is how you get your choice back. The 10th step can help us correct our living problems and prevent their reoccurrence. We examine our actions during the day. Some of us write about our feelings, explaining how we felt and what part we might have played in any problems which occurred. Did we cause someone harm? Do we need to admit that we were wrong? If we find difficulties, we make an effort to take care of them. When these things are left undone, they have a way of festering, which then turns into resentment. This step can be a defense against the old insanity. We can ask ourselves if we are being drawn into old patterns of anger, resentment, or fear. Do we feel trapped? Are we setting ourselves up for trouble? Are we too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? HALT. Y'all have heard of that? HALT. If you are either hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, your thought processes, the choices you make, the actions you take are going to be tainted by those things. So before you make any major decisions, make any major changes, maybe open your mouth. If you're hungry, eat. If you're angry, take some breath, say a prayer, calm the hell down. If you're lonely, call your sponsor, call a friend, pet your dog. If you're tired, take a nap. If you're making decisions with that mindset, it's probably not going to work out well for you. Are we taking ourselves too seriously? Are we judging our insides by the outside appearance of others? The answers to these questions can help us deal with the difficulties of the moment. We no longer have to live with the feeling that we have a hole in the gut. A lot of our chief concerns and major difficulties come from our inexperience with living without drugs. Often, when we ask an old timer what to do, we are amazed at the simplicity of the answer. The 10th step can be a pressure relief valve. We work this step while the day's ups and downs are still fresh in our minds. We list what we have done and try not to rationalize our actions. This may be done in writing at the end of the day. The first thing we do is stop. Then we take the time to allow ourselves the privilege of thinking. We examine our actions, reactions, and motives. We often find that we've been doing better than we've been feeling. That's that fake it till you make it kind of mentality. This allows us to examine our actions and admit fault before things get any worse. We need to avoid rationalizing. We promptly admit our faults, not explain them. Hear those words. We admit them, we don't explain them. I did this thing. Why you did it? I didn't mean to. That wasn't my intention. Guess what? Nobody's judging you on your intentions. You're judged on your actions and the outcome of the choices that you make, not what you meant, what you thought. None of that's going to matter, especially if you're dealing with other people. Other people don't want to hear that crap. And if you think they do, put yourself in the other person's position. If it had happened to you and they came at you with that lame excuse of, well, that's not what I meant, how would you feel about that? Would you take that and say, oh, okay, you didn't mean to? Or would you be like, I don't care what you meant, this is what you did? That's every human. Always hold realistic expectations and don't expect from other people what you wouldn't expect yourself. We work this step continuously. This is a preventative action. The more we work this step, the less we will need the corrective part of this step. This step is a great tool for avoiding grief before we bring it on ourselves. We monitor our feelings, emotions, fantasies, and actions. By constantly looking at ourselves, we are able to avoid repeating the actions that make us feel bad. It's wonderful to be living a life that you don't have to make amends, right? Because making amends sucks. Make choices and decisions that keep you from having to ever make an amends. We're human. That's not going to happen. I piss people off on the regular. I'm great. I'm cute, smart, funny, blah, blah, blah. But the idea that I'm walking the world in some kind of perfection, that ship sank, sailed, never got to the water. I'm not perfect, neither are you. So we continue to take personal inventory. We need this step even when we're feeling good and when things are going well. Good feelings are new to us and we need to nurture them. In times of trouble, we can try the things that worked during the good times. We have the right to feel good. We have a choice. The good times can also be a trap. The danger is that we may forget that our first priority is to stay clean. For us, recovery is more than just pleasure. We need to remember that everyone makes mistakes. We will never be perfect. However, we can accept ourselves by using step 10. By continuing a personal inventory, we are set free in the here and now from ourselves and the past. We no longer justify our existence. This step allows us to be ourselves. Now we're going to move into it works how and why. And at the end of this, if you hang out, I'm going to tell you the basics of the questions you want to ask yourself if you're going to do it daily at the end of your day. I recommend that. You don't have to be in recovery for these to be important in your life. You can share these things with anybody in your life. Every single person walking the world, if they take the time at the end of their day to reflect on their day, that is a good thing. It works how and why. We find step 10 on 96. And of course, it starts again. We continue to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Recovery in Narcotics Anonymous is about learning how to live. Incorporating the spiritual principles we learned in the first 9 steps into our lives has made it possible to live in harmony with ourselves and others. Self-examination, confronting what we find in ourselves, and owning up to our wrongs are critical elements of conducting our lives on a spiritual basis. By working the 10th step, we become more aware of our emotions, our mental state, and our spiritual condition. As we do, we find ourselves constantly rewarded with fresh insight. Some of us look back at our 4th step and wonder why we have to do a 10th step. We may think that we've corrected all our past mistakes in the previous steps, since we have no intention of making those mistakes again. Why should we continue with this relentless self-examination? The 10th step seems like a tiresome chore to some of us, a painful exercise that we could just as well avoid. But we must continue to grow, and that's exactly what the 10th step helps us do. Though we will return to the previous steps again and again, the 10th step furthers our spiritual healing in a different way by creating an awareness of what's going on in our lives today. Step 4 is about the past. Step 8 is about the past. Step 10 is about the right here, right now, and the future. The importance of keeping in touch with our thoughts, attitudes, feelings, and behavior cannot be overemphasized. Every day, life presents us with new challenges. Our recovery depends on our willingness to meet those challenges. Our experience tells us that some members relapse even after long periods of clean time because they have become complacent in recovery, allowing their resentments to build and refusing to acknowledge their wrongs. That is one of the scariest things. Nothing scares me more than hearing an addict say, "Oh, I know." Well, if you know, why aren't you doing it? If you become complacent and you think, "Oh, I don't need this. I don't need to be of service. I don't need to go to meetings. I don't need to work my steps. I don't need to read my literature. I'm good now, and I'm just going to keep it pushing." You are not keeping yourself in good spiritual condition so that when life happens, and it will, 'cause it's like life that way, you are not strong in the solution. That's what we're talking about right here. Little by little, those small hurts, half-truths, and justified grudges turn into deep disappointments, serious self-deceptions, and full-blown resentments. We can't allow these threats to compromise our recovery. We have to deal with situations such as these as soon as they arise. Let's talk about that. This is one paragraph can make or break the whole rest of your life. Small hurts, half-truths, and justified grudges. Small hurt is something that you will tell yourself the half-truth, which is a whole lie, that, well, I'm let that slide. Oh, that's not a big deal. That's okay. They didn't mean it. Da-da-da. No, it's fine to let things slide. It's fine to take a breath and pick your battles and make a choice to not let something affect you, to not get upset by something, to let people be who they are and do what they do. And if that's the way you're going to act, that's good. I know, and I'm going to keep myself pushing. However, if your feelings are hurt, if you are insulted, if you feel disrespected, if you're mad because that guy didn't use his turn signal, you're mad that that person didn't say excuse me, whatever, these small little things that you tell yourself, that's nothing to get upset about. Okay, whether or not it's something to get upset about doesn't change the fact of whether or not you get upset by it. So many of us go, "Oh, that's fine. I'll let that slide." And then later it's, "Well, I've done let everything slide. Now I'm not going to let this slide." You know why? Because there was a net at the end of your slide. You told yourself you let it slide. You told everybody else you let it slide. But there's this net at the end of your slide, and all these little things are getting caught in that net. And your slide's backing up till what happens? One day, some tiny little thing happens and you go off the rails. You have a come apart, pieces of you flying everywhere, and then you look like a crazy person because why are you upset about that tiny little thing? You're not mad about that tiny little thing. You're mad because you didn't actually deal with all those tiny little things. You told yourself and everybody else, "Oh, I let that slide," because it's embarrassing to get all upset over something small. It is. You're like, "Oh, I shouldn't even be bothered by that. That's a ridiculous thing." Okay. Doesn't change the fact. Deal with the thing in the moment. That's small hurts. Half truths, simplest way to tell you. A half truth is a whole lie. If you're telling a half truth A lie by omission. Well, I didn't say that. Yeah, if you're not telling the whole story, either to yourself or to other people, or somebody's telling you a half truth, so you're making your decisions based on bullshit, that's going to be upsetting. So, half truths are a problem. This other one, justified grudges. It's very easy to look at ourselves and say, I'm holding that grudge and I need to be able to let that go. But when you feel justified, you feel righteous. Somebody did something to you and you are rightfully mad about it. Somebody stole your car. Your girlfriend cheated on you, whatever it is. Absolutely. Of course you're mad about that. So you're holding on to that grudge. You're holding on to that resentment and you feel okay hanging on to it because it's righteous. Of course I'm mad about it. Your diseased mind, the demon, that resentment, that grudge, doesn't matter if it's righteous or not. What's the difference? The result is going to be the same. You getting squirrely because you're going to hang on to this anger. You're going to stay mad for what? Because it's righteous? Well, she cheated on me, so I hate her and I'm going to stay hating her. Well, you can hate her all day long. If she cheated on you, that don't change that. But you staying mad and you holding on to that grudge and you feeling those low frequency emotions, that's affecting you. That's putting your sobriety at risk. And for what? She's not even a part of your life anymore. You don't got to look at her. You don't got to talk to her, whatever. Let her go. Let that go. Let that slide. But get rid of the net at the end of your slide and actually let it slide. If you're holding a grudge, it's going to end up drowning you. So we have to deal with these things when they arise. If you feel hurt, there's a half truth involved. You've got a righteous grudge. Still got to handle it. Still got to deal with it just like you would anything else. In the 10th step, we use all the principles and actions we learned in the previous steps, applying them to our lives on a consistent basis. Beginning our days by reaffirming our decision to live life according to our higher power's will has helped many of us keep spiritual ideals foremost in our mind throughout the day. Even so, we are bound to make mistakes that are very familiar to us. We can attribute virtually every wrongdoing to a character defect we identified in the 6th step. Humbly asking God of our understanding to remove our shortcomings is just as necessary now as it was in the 7th step. In the 10th step, we take such actions on a regular basis. Every day, we take our own inventory. Look for those times when we fall short of our spiritual beliefs and renew our efforts to live principle-centered life. For example, when we are faced with the tendency to behave compulsively, ignoring the consequences of our actions, we need to focus on spiritual principles, take prompt action, and continue forward in our recovery. Although forming a habit of working this step may be difficult at first, we must persist. We can set aside some time during the day for focused self-appraisal while gradually moving toward a goal of being able to look at ourselves throughout the day. We keep going forward, striving each moment to become ever more aware of ourselves. We need to develop self-discipline. The more effort we put into doing so, the more we'll find that working the 10th step will become as natural as breathing. When y'all hear me say, I stay praying, that is me 10th stepping. It was very difficult for me at first. In the beginning, I had an app on my phone that would go off and remind me to do my 10th step at the end of the day. My sponsor gave me some worksheets I could use. I really had to put a conscious effort into the 10th step. That has become for me over time routine. You always hear me say, well, I stay praying, because throughout my day, as things come up, I am taking that moment, taking that breath, looking at the situation, putting it against the spiritual principles, asking God to help me, asking God to relieve me of the negative emotions or character defects that I might be expressing in that moment, and then going on to the next moment. That's what stay and praying means to me. And it is something that came with time and practice, and still today have to remind myself sometimes. I forget myself sometimes. I'm a human being. I fall short of the glory of God every single day, several times a day, most of the time. Not that we should be hard on ourselves, picking at our every motive and looking for problems where none exist. We need to stay in tune with the voice of our conscience and listen to what it's telling us. When we get a nagging feeling that something isn't quite right, we should pay attention to it. If our feelings of guilt or anger seem to go on for a long time, we can do something about them. We know when something is bothering us, perhaps not immediately, but usually not too long after the fact. As soon as we become aware that we're feeling ill at ease, we search out the cause and deal with it as soon as possible. While we strive to maintain ongoing awareness throughout the day, it is also helpful to sit down at the end of each day and quietly reflect on what has happened and how we responded to it. Often, our sponsor will suggest that we write out our 10th step. We may also make use of our informational pamphlet, Living the Program. If you're going to NA meetings, which I highly recommend, those pamphlets are usually available at all meetings. In this step, we ask ourselves the same types of questions we asked in the 4th step. The only difference is that the emphasis is on today. We look at our current behavior and ask ourselves if we are living by our values. Am I being honest today? Am I maintaining personal integrity in my relations with others? Am I growing, or am I slipping back into old patterns? We concentrate on the overall picture of our day. Do this on the daily. You don't want to let too many days in a row go by without you doing this little self-reflection, because you don't want to let things sit. You don't want to let things fester. You don't want to let things grow, turning molehills into mountains. In order to examine our day, or our life for that matter, in its entirety, we have to draw on the humility we've acquired in the previous steps. We have learned quite a bit about ourselves, how we've responded to life in the past, and how we want to respond to life now. It takes a great deal of awareness to humbly acknowledge our part in our own lives. We may have trouble knowing when we are wrong simply because we usually intend to be right. For instance, at some point in our recovery, we may attend a group business meeting firmly convinced that we know what the group should do. We've studied all sides of the issue. We forcefully share our views on the meeting. We're so convinced of our rightness that we fail to recognize our self-righteousness. We are blind to the harm we're causing others by not respecting their views as much as our own. Often, we act in ways that are contrary to our values, yet we expect others to live up to our standards. For instance, we may find ourselves flinching when we hear others gossiping about someone. Following such an occurrence, we are likely to be self-righteous until we catch ourselves doing the very same thing. Other situations can occur when we become super critical of others. For example, we may have a tendency to have high expectations of others. However, we have a variety of excuses at hand for why these standards don't apply to us. If we find ourselves in the midst of such moral uncertainty, we can use the principles of the 10th step to provide more clarity. There may be other times in our lives when we find ourselves in a situation that seems to require compromise of our personal beliefs and values. For instance, if we had gained employment at a company only to discover that our employer expected us to indulge in questionable business practices, we could reasonably expect to feel confused about the choices available to us. Deciding what to do about such a difficult dilemma would be a tough decision for any one of us. We may be tempted to make a snap judgment or expect our sponsor to provide an easy answer. However, we have found that no one can solve such a dilemma for us. While our sponsor will provide us with guidance, we must apply the principles of the program for ourselves and arrive at our own decision. In the end, we are the ones who must live with our conscience. In order to do so comfortably, we must decide what is and what is not morally acceptable in our lives. It can be very confusing to determine when we were wrong, especially when we're right in the middle of a conflict. When our emotions are running high, we may not be able to take an honest look at ourselves. We can see only our immediate wants and needs. At such times, our sponsor may suggest that we take a personal inventory on a particular area of our lives so that we can see our part. If our friends notice that we're acting on a character defect, they may suggest that we talk to our sponsor about it. Being open-minded to the suggestions of our sponsor and our NA friends, paying attention to what our conscience is telling us, spending some quiet time with the God of our understanding, all these things will lead us to greater clarity. Once we're aware that we've been wrong, whether it's 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days after the fact, we need to admit our error as soon as possible and correct any harm that we've caused. As in the 9th step, we find that the process of admitting our mistakes and changing our behavior brings about tremendous freedom. Of course, we must be just as careful when amending our current behavior as we were when we made amends in the 9th step. For instance, if we find that we were wrong because we sat in a meeting silently judging someone who shared, we certainly don't need to go tell that person what we were thinking. Instead, we can make an effort to be more tolerant. This is referring back to step 9, making direct amends unless that would harm somebody. If you're only making that amend to ease your own guilt so that you feel better, but really you're hurting the person that you're telling this thing to, they didn't know that this even happened or that you had this thought or that this action took place. They weren't harmed. So you're trying to correct it, not because you're trying to undo a harm, but because you're trying to make yourself feel better. Just stop doing that and don't do it to somebody else. We must remember that the 10th step isn't a one-sided endeavor, an exercise in noting what we have done wrong. We must resist any urge to become obsessive with this step, ruthlessly searching out every flaw in our character. The point of the 10th step is for us to be willing to pay attention to our thoughts, behaviors, and values, then work on what we need to change. We all have intrusive thoughts all the time, but you thinking the thing and you acting on the thing are two different things. You can control your actions a lot better than you can control your thoughts and feelings. One of those great cliches, I love, first thought wrong. The very first thing that pops into your head is probably the wrong thing. So don't act on that thing. Probably the first 2 or 3 things that pop in your head. Just let them go and see what's down there at thought 4 or 5. That might be more in line with what you should do. A lot of times we're so reactive that the first thing we think to do is going to be the wrong thing. The point of the 10th step is for us to be willing to pay attention to our thoughts, behaviors, and values, then work on what we need to change. We should acknowledge that quite often our motives are good and we do things right. Character defects and character assets do not exclude each other, and we are sure to find both on any given day. We develop recovery-oriented goals for ourselves as we work this step. When we see that we've been afraid to go forward in a particular area of our lives, we can resolve to take a few risks, drawing our courage from our higher power. When we see that we've been selfish, we can strive to become more generous in the future. When we realize today that we've fallen short in any area of our lives, we don't have to be overwhelmed by feelings of dread and fear of failure. Instead, we can be grateful for our self-awareness and begin to feel a sense of hope. Hey, at least I recognize it. At least I see it. Used to be, I wouldn't even know that I was being an asshole. Today, I can recognize that I'm an asshole. Maybe tomorrow, I won't be an asshole. See how that works? I think it's pretty easy math. We know that by applying our program of recovery to our shortcomings, we will change and grow. We begin to see ourselves more realistically as a result of working the 10th step. Many of us have remarked on the freedom we experience through freely admitting our mistakes and releasing ourselves from unrealistic expectations. Where before we went from one extreme to another, either feeling better than everyone else or feeling worthless, we now find that middle ground where true self-worth can flourish. We feel renewed hope as we uncover long-neglected assets in this step. We see ourselves as we really are, accepting our good qualities along with our defects, knowing we can change with the help of a higher power. We're becoming what we were meant to be all along, whole human beings. Although all of us need the love and attention of others, that doesn't mean we must depend on people to provide what we can find only within ourselves. We can stop making unreasonable demands on others and begin to give of ourselves in relationships. Our romantic relationships, our friendships, and our interactions with family members, coworkers, and casual acquaintances are undergoing an astounding change. We are free to enjoy another's companionship because we're no longer so obsessed with ourselves. We finally see that all the devices we use to keep other people away are unnecessary at best, and more often than not, are the underlying cause of the pain we suffer in our relationships. Healthier relationships are just one indication that the quality of our lives has improved dramatically. Such indications merely reflect the intangible but very real changes that have taken place inside us. Our entire outlook has changed. Compared to the spiritual values we hold dear today, concerns such as looking good or amassing material wealth pale in significance. By accepting the challenge of self-appraisal called for in the 10th step, we've discovered that we value our recovery and our relationship with the God of our understanding above all else. As the inner chaos that we lived with for so long subsides, we begin to experience long periods of serenity. During these times, we experience the powerful presence of a loving God in our lives. We're increasingly conscious of that power and are ready to search for ways to maintain and improve our contact with it. Seeking direction and meaning for our lives, we go on to the 11th step. 10th step inventory. Throughout your day, set something up in your notes or whatever you do on your phone. Everybody's got their phone in their hand. You could do it at the end of your night when you've settled down for the day, you put the kids to bed, you're done working, you're about to snuggle up. Sit, think about your day. These are the questions you want to ask yourself. What did I do right today? What are the things that you did in your day that you're proud of? They could be small things. Held the elevator door. You were polite, generous, thoughtful towards other people. What did I do wrong today? What could I have done better today? Maybe I should have held the door open for that lady. In that moment, what would you have done different today if you could go back? Did you do anything that you owe an apology for? Did you do anything that you owe an amends for? Apology is, I'm sorry. Sorry that I did that. I'm sorry that this happened. I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. Whatever it is that you're sorry for. Making amends is about righting a wrong and repairing a relationship. That is when you have done something so harmful that you have to go to that person and say, listen, I know that I fucked this up, and what can I do to repair this relationship? So those are your inventory questions. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Do I owe an apology? Do I owe an amends? And then you pray about it. God, forgive me for my wrongs and release me from whatever negative feelings. Release me from my negative emotions. Maybe you call your sponsor. Listen, I got this going on. What do you suggest? And then the next day, make those apologies, make those amends. And at the end of that day, when you're doing that inventory, what did I do right today? Well, I apologized when I was supposed to, and I made my amends, and I didn't make the same mistakes today that I made yesterday. You're going to have days where from start to finish, it's just one mistake after another. You're going to have days like that. You're going to have other days where you're like, wow, everything just fell into place today. I woke up, prayed, everything was nice, and I got everything on my little list of things to get done for the day done. I'm good. And in recovery, you find that you have way more days where you're like, you know what? I did good today. I don't believe I do owe anybody an apology today. I don't believe I did do anything that I owe an amends for today. That may not be the case tomorrow. Just do it every day. Make it part of your routine. And then you get to a point where you stay praying. I'm the first one to go, oh, I'm sorry, my bad, my mistake. I didn't mean that. Or if you correct me, you point something out to me that I have said or done, I can reflect and go, okay, you know what? Let me think about that for a second. You know what? You're right. Or I might say, well, I see where you're coming from, but I disagree. So I'm not really going to change anything. I am clear-headed enough to be able to take the step and take the breath and say the little prayer like, higher power, Jesus, what would you have me do in this moment? Or I'm feeling a little squirrely, Jesus, can you please relieve this feeling for me so that I don't do something stupid? that I'm going to have to apologize and make amends for. But again, that happens over time. Nothing's easy. My life is great and it's awesome and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. But that doesn't mean it's easy. I don't get near enough sleep. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, share it, tell all your friends, visit the website, starvethedemon.com, buy a t-shirt, buy me a coffee, or just hang out. There's resources on there. There's interviews. You can watch on YouTube, listen on Spotify. Everything's free. Love everybody. Let God sort them out. Take deep breaths. Think happy thoughts. Keep coming back.